our house was the center of activity in the beginning because I had to create an organization from just it was a spontaneous movement, and so the organization was created, and a lot of the activities, meetings and so forth, were held at our house. A lot of his conferences certainly were at the house because people started coming from all over the media to cover the story. So he had a lot of interviews scheduled there, and sometimes an interview would be scheduled, and I was waiting lunch for him, and he would walk in late, and of course he would say to them, well, he had to have lunch. Would you like to have lunch with me? Well, I hadn't prepared lunch for anybody extra, so I had to say, oh, just a minute. I'll call you in a few minutes, and then try to find some more food from somewhere. So I learned pretty quickly to have a lot of food on hand. I always have more than what Martin and I could eat. But anyway, after the movement started, it was like, you don't plan any day. It's planned for you almost. And I learned to live with that. But Antioch had prepared me for a change, constant change in my life there. So I continued to adjust to it. It wasn't easy, but it was exciting. It was exciting when the people stood up at 50,000 strong to boycott the buses. I mean, that was so exciting because this had never happened before.
And Rosa Parks was also an extraordinary woman. You got to know her during this period.
Oh yes, Mrs. Parks was a very quiet and dignified person, and was the appropriate person to be the pioneer, because she was such a lady. She was a Southern lady, and I think one of the reasons why the bus driver didn't rough her up, she was so dignified in her carriage, and she was such a lady. How can you hit on Rosa Parks? And so she was a nonviolent in her spirit even then, because she had been to the Highlander Folk School, where they did talk about nonviolence, teach us on nonviolent and violence, and so everybody, when they found out it was Mrs. Rosa Parks, everyone was righteously indignant, let's say, because how can you, a very respectable lady like Rosa Parks, you put her in jail like this and treat her this way? So I think she was, again, it was the right person for the moment. And of course, Martin was asked to be the spokesperson. When he came home that evening from the first meeting that was called, and told me that he had been selected to be the spokesperson, and he said, I have 20 minutes to prepare for the most important speech in my whole life, and he was obviously nervous, but he had a way of doing an outline. He did an outline quickly, and he could speak from an outline as well. So
it was exciting, but it was also dangerous, and you had to get used to that.
It was dangerous, and I didn't know how dangerous it was initially, because when we started getting the threats, then I realized, it was dangerous. But I thought that many times they were empty threats. When a caller called and said to my husband, if you don't stop your I don't know what word he used, but whatever, in 3 days, and be out of town in 3 days, we're going to bomb your house and kill your wife and baby. Well, when there was some talk about bombing, supposing they bomb, and I thought, well, nobody's going to bomb the house. If they do, it'll be a hit and run from the back, not on the main street. But when the bomb actually hit, I said, oh, they are for real. And we could have been hurt, we could have been killed even. So, that's when I realized how dangerous it was. And that's when I also had to realize that if I continued with my husband in the struggle, that I too could be killed.
How do you adjust to that? How do you?
Well, again, I turned within, and I did a lot of soul searching and praying, because I know that if we are doing God's work and doing the right thing, that that God would protect us. I had that belief. That was my feeling. Now, of course, it doesn't mean that you may not be, that you may avoid being killed. It means that you could be killed. But you have an inner peace and a satisfaction if you feel that you are doing the right thing and doing what God intends for you to do. Because I remember after the house was bombed, and I had to, because my parents were pulling me, trying to pull me away, and his parents were trying to pull him away. And I knew I wasn't going anywhere. But I had to be polite about it. But I had to come to a peace within myself that I am not going to go anywhere. I'm going to be right here because this is what this is right, what we're called to do. And then I started thinking back over the path that had led me there, from my home training, the threats from my father, and I thought, gosh, my father was threatened in his early years, in my early years. And, it's like maybe I was subconsciously being prepared then because I was fearful for my father. And then I thought about the path to Antioch College and my preparation, and then to Montgomery now. And here I am. And all of a sudden, when Martin said we're going to Montgomery, that's where I want to start my ministry. And I wondered why. And then I said, now I know why. This exciting movement. And this is part of God's plan. And this is what we are supposed to be doing. This is what I'm supposed to be doing.